today. Hey, man.
Hey, Brian, how are you?
I'm well. See, we got this brand new iPad, right? This sassy new like mega
Wow.
iPad, and it didn't work today. It just wouldn't work. So I had to improvise to my phone. So I was a couple minutes late getting on. Usually I'm on early. So
No worries at all, Brian. Nice to see you. I feel like I haven't actually seen you in person for how many years?
I
Four?
don't know. I
Five?
don't know. It's been a while. No, were you at the Fancy Food Show in January in California?
I don't know. I didn't. No, not this past one. No,
I saw you in New York last spring or last summer at the Fancy Food Show, though.
that's right. That's right. You did. Sorry.
It's all right. You were busy. You were selling stuff.
I was. It's always a pleasure to be at these shows. I miss them. I really do miss the fancy food shows. But
Virtual in San Francisco in January. You can do your virtual trade show.
I guess so. Well, what do you think? Do you think we'll have a fancy food show in New York? Like,
I was on a call the other day that the plan is to try to have a show in New York in July.
wonderful news. I'm happy to hear that.
I mean, I guess the proof will be in the pudding, right? We'll see what happens.
That's right. Let's see. What else? What's going on at Tomrick?
Yeah. I mean, we're busy. I mean, the crazy thing is that, like, it's not crazy. I mean, I think that, as you know, I mean, people are still enjoying chocolate in spite of what's going on in the world, and
Yeah, absolutely.
people are still trying to make stuff, and from us buying equipment and tools and stuff, and so we're busy. I'm just on Zoom all the time as opposed to having people here.
Yeah, that's right. No, but you're a great company. I mean, so what? I've been in business for 20 years this year, right? And I think I've been buying from Tomrick for all 20 years. And you're smart. You're a great company. You're staying current. They have you as on the payroll. I mean, they're smart people. They know what they're doing. They surround themselves with good
I don't
people.
know. I wait every day for the other shoe to drop. Like I kind of come in and I log into my computer and make sure that I can still log in. And if I can still log in, I'm working another day because the IT guy's usually here before me. So I made it through another week. So
You will be you're an asset to every company, Brian.
well, thank you. So
And
I was thinking when we met, for the first time, my daughter was probably 3. I don't know. It's like 7 or 8 years ago.
oh yeah, I thought actually I'd known you longer than that. Okay, all right.
I mean, I guess had we met before we did that show? Like, so for people that don't know, Fritz and I we competed against each other.
Yeah, of course you want to bring that up. I knew you were going to bring that up. Yes, Brian, you won. I know. Trust me.
I got lucky because
Uh,
Chris brought the noise that day. I mean, he brought like a professional artist.
that's true. But he did that every time.
He's super talented. He's a world champion. I
He,
mean, he
he
does
is
that stuff.
he's absolutely amazing. I mean, he's absolutely incredible. I just feel, Brian, that show was supposed to be a little bit more fun, a little more gimmicky than building world-class chocolate sculptures. I don't know if you follow me. I think for a viewer's point of view, I think that it might be hard to follow certain things when they were done so much at that caliber compared
Yes.
to something they could visually relate to and, that's cute,
Oh,
that's awesome,
yeah. So the whole story is Fritz and I competed on Food Network Challenge. It was on Valentine's Day, like 6 or 7 years ago, and we competed against a woman named Naomi Gallego she's in the DC area now. I don't know where, she's originally from Texas. And then Fritz was on the show, I was on the show, and Chris Hamner was on the show, and we're talking about the fact that Chris was a world champion, right? I mean, he won
Yeah, oh,
the
absolutely.
world chit,
Yeah.
right? And he did a piece that technically was one of the most unbelievable pieces that I've ever seen technically. He was
Yeah.
bending chocolate to make it look like a boat. They were like painting in 47 colors to make it look like Venice. They had like water with cocoa butter in it and floating flowers, and the piece was unreal.
Unbelievable.
Like, it was unbelievable.
Yeah.
My piece, however, ended up in pieces on the floor,
Yeah.
for the record, like a million little pieces on the floor, which was devastating to me. And Fritz had problems with chocolate all day because it had to be like 92 degrees in that room, right? I mean, how warm was it in there?
But yeah, it was brutal, and obviously I'm the contestant, so everything is on me. But I didn't have anybody to bring with me. I brought somebody that really didn't know what they were doing. So I was just honestly, it was a stressful day at the office. Let's put it that way.
And it was for everybody. And then like Naomi brought somebody too that like probably wasn't the best choice. I mean, he's a great guy, but he wasn't a kitchen guy, right? And so, and I brought a better pastry chef than me. Like, let's get down to brass tacks. I brought Amanda Hubba from AUI to like cover my ass, right? Yeah. And so I ended up winning, which isn't why I'm telling the story. But but yeah, like Chris, like, dude, he brought it.
Chris, I was actually on this specific show several times. I don't know if you know that. And Chris ended up winning all of them. And I actually forgot for a second that Chris was in the one that we were in as well. So for me, it was like, oh no, Chris is there again. He's gonna bring it home, but he didn't. You did, even though it crashed, even though something went wrong for you, right?
but I think that's what we're talking about. I think like I think you and I work a lot alike, where we recognize that it is about what our customers want, what our consumers want. Like, and we'll talk about your chocolate business obviously in a minute, but like you can design whatever you want, showpiece or flavor or whatever, but if you don't have customers for it, then it doesn't matter, right?
That's right. Yep.
Like, we talk a lot on this program about flavor, and like, it's one thing to create that cool flavor that we like as chefs, right? Because I'll eat anything, right?
Yeah.
And I'll try and I'll pay for it, like because I think it's interesting, right? But our customer, what's your most popular flavor in your box or in your case right now?
Caramel sea salt,
Right.
But you're absolutely right, Brian. And I think, if we back up a little bit, and I'm in no way trying to give myself any credit here. I started 20 years ago. I think at that time we were a handful of chocolatiers, right? There were Michael Ricciuti, Katrina from Vose. I think Taurus had just started out, and I really don't remember if there was anybody else on an artisan level. I really mean, right? And
Candinas in Wisconsin was probably doing some stuff because he just moved over from Switzerland. Okay. But yeah, but you're right. There were 10, Nick Elrath, like 10, maybe 15 nationwide.
Something like that. Yeah, and I guess I don't even know them. And I didn't even know them at that time, right? So anyway, Brian, so, my flavor combinations, remember, were very inspired from the savory world because of my background. And, I did flavors like tangerine, ancho chili, apricot, basil, apple rosemary, prunes that I soaked in Armagnac for 6 months, caramel sea salt back then, which I'm just telling you, Brian, today people will laugh at it. When I did caramel sea salt 20 years ago, people didn't get it. They thought it was weird. And, today you can have caramel sea salt anything, right?
Right, with 14 different types of sea salt. The sea salt is selected from the Dead Sea, and the caramel, the sugar was harvested in the Virgin Islands, and
So I think so a lot has changed. But point being, Brian, I think in the beginning, that was kind of the response I got. It was like, what are these flavors? Are you crazy? But then people would taste them, and they'll be like, well, it really works. And to me, it's logic why they work. If they work in savory, they also work in sweets in my head. You can use to make a wonderful ice cream gelato, right? That can be tangerine, ancho chili. It can be pineapple, basil, and so forth. So for me, it was all kind of, common sense back then. But starting out an artisan chocolate company 20 years ago was actually really hard because people would literally say to me, where are they made? In the US? We don't know how to make chocolate here. It was a tremendous education that went into all of this, trying to explain that it doesn't really matter where the products are made, it's a matter of how they're made, and using fresh cream, fresh butter, and local cream, local butter, and the raw chocolate is coming from here and there and all that. So it was actually really, really difficult in the beginning. And then, of course, there was a shelf life question as well, right? Because people were used to, I'm not saying any names, generic larger brands where the chocolates lasted for a long time, right? So, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, and I think that shift in this country, North America, has been, people like you, and I'm going to throw Norman Love's name in there too, because Norman kind of was in that same timeline, right?
Yeah.
Have given room for, I mean, obviously it's contributed to our growth as a company, but I mean, like, it's given room to all of these people throughout North America to really show premium chocolate and get really good at what they do, right? I mean, I think without people like you, those people don't have a business right now.
Yeah, well, that's nice of you to say, but no, I don't know if they actually know how hard it was in the beginning to convince people about supporting local products made in the U.S. and trying to explain that, well, you might think that the best chocolate comes from Switzerland and Belgium, but let's talk a little bit about it, right? I'm not saying you and I talk about it, but and try to explain to them, that yes, the milk chocolate is great. It's happy cows on grass and fields, but milk powder, right? But reality is that the cocoa beans, there are no cocoa trees growing in Belgium and Switzerland, right? But it was hard to to educate and to explain these things because people really didn't know. They thought all chocolate if it was good, it had to come from Belgium or Switzerland, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think that paradigm shifted too. I mean, if we think about, like, you've been at plantation, I've been at plantation. I mean, like, my first trip to plantation was 15, 16 years ago. Yeah. And at that point, like, nobody was at plantation, right? If you worked for a chocolate company, you got to go to plantation. And now, thanks to our chocolate companies, they're taking people every year. They're taking their customers and they're teaching people how to teach our customers, right? So they're teaching the chocolatier about things that they never knew. And that chocolatier in turn is able to teach their customers about why it matters. Like, why does it matter that we're getting cacao from South America, right?
Yeah. No, that's very, very accurate. And I do think that it's very exciting being from Europe that we can now travel to as many cities as we can and find local chocolates and local chocolatiers. They're really passionate and really cares because that is a new world, and that was just non-existent before. You can go to Dallas and go to Kansas City and find your local person. It's awesome. It's exciting.
I still think, though, that one of the cool things, I did a trip through Germany. I did a trip through Italy, Switzerland, and Germany probably 8 years ago, something like that. And, like, the one thing that I think is still really different is how regionalized chocolate is in Europe, right? And so when you're in Munich, right, that chocolate is fundamentally different than it is in Berlin. And when you're in Torino, that chocolate is different than it is in Rome. And I think that's one thing that, as the chocolate market grows in the United States, I think that's going to start to happen to a certain degree, where it existed in the American confectioner. So my grandmother's chocolate from Philadelphia was different than, but I think the artisan chocolate flavors are going to start to become really distinct, whether you're in Texas or you're in New York, or Seattle.
But do you feel that they are not that right now, Brian? I mean, do you mind giving me an example? Do you feel like, let's just say, a chocolatier in Texas, do you feel that person should use Texan local flavors only? Or?
No, I think because we're still learning in this country how to be artisan chocolatiers, right? So let's say we're 20 years into that conversation versus being 100 years into the conversation, like Zurich. Okay, so we're 20% of the time in. I think that there are still some resources that everyone uses, whether that be the Peter Grueling book or Michael Riccudi's book, right? Where a lot of us started making chocolate from was Riccudi's book, which has got to be 25 years old now, right?
Yep.
And I think that's kind of like homogenized the channel to a certain degree, and then as it's growing, it's moving. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I know I do. Yeah.
And I think what's also different though is it from Europe, and I don't know that this is going to change. You know, we really only have 5 or 6 premium major chocolate makers that we're purchasing chocolate from,
Yeah.
right? I
True.
mean, I don't know how many different chocolate companies you use, but most people are using one of 5.
Yeah, that's right.
And so that means that there's a lot of flavors that are consistent, whether if you're a Valrhona user in New York, you're using the same Valrhona in San Francisco.
Yeah.
Where, I mean, if you think about in France, we're using 2 or 3 chocolates, and then in Switzerland, we're using 2 or 3 different chocolates that are different. They just are. Their origins are different. Their milk powders are different. Their processing is different.
Yeah.
You know, and so it leads to some of that distinct flavors.
Yeah.
A little more to a certain degree.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. And you're right, and that will be exciting and interesting to see. You know, it is still.
If we live that long, by the way, if you and I live that long to see where it goes.
We will. We're eating chocolates every day, so we will. Yeah.
Okay, but so you started this company 20 years ago, but you were in this country before that.
Yeah, so as you know, I was born and raised in Denmark, and I started very early in the restaurant industry, you know, washing dishes at a local restaurant at, I don't know, 13, 14 years old, I guess. On the weekends, you know, earn your own money kind of thing. And then I kind of fell in love with it all. You know, it's hard to describe, but there's steam, the craziness in the kitchen, the tone in the kitchen, right? And obviously the cute servers, I guess. And then
I don't think you can say that anymore.
Oh, that's right. No, probably not. Well, that could be both. And then
Good point.
And then I kind of pursued that path, and I went to culinary college for 4.5 years. And it's a different kind of education. Like every country has its own educational system, you know.
Right.
And it was combined baking, pastry, chocolate, and cooking. And then I worked in France and Spain. I worked in a little town called Montroc outside Chamonix. A little hotel, I think 30 rooms. And then I worked in southern Spain, Puerto Banús, and then I moved here in '96. And I got sponsored by a French restaurant. So most of my background is very classic French, which I'm thankful for. The respect, the discipline, the classic recipes, and all that. Then I got sponsored by a French restaurant here, Le Chateau in New York, to get my permanent residency. And I was there for 3 years, and obviously made some chocolates, and everybody was like, "Whoa, these are so good, man! You should do it for yourself." So I started out, but you know, it's hard to give up a paycheck, you know. So I sold to one store. I made a box packaging label, and I went to a local store, and she was like, "Oh, Fritz, these are so wonderful. Bring me 24 boxes as soon as you can." And I was so excited, Brian. I called everybody. This was the first place I went to, and she wants 24 boxes. It was just awesome. Something really, really cool happened. That very first weekend, somebody bought a box of chocolate and gave it to the owner of Dino De Luca, Giorgio De Luca. And Giorgio called a couple of days after himself, left a message. I thought it was a joke because everybody knows Dino De Luca or knew Dino De Luca, and that's like the place you want to be in if you have a upscale food products, right? So I got into Dino De Luca, and until last year, it was incredible relationship. I did so many products for all the stores and the catalog, and really healthy, challenging meetings, developing flavor profiles, products together, tasting back and forth. And then very early on, Martha Stewart only lived, I think, 2 miles away from here. And Martha Stewart.
So for everybody that doesn't know, you're in Connecticut. You moved from New York to Connecticut.
Oh, yes, Connecticut, Norwalk, Connecticut. Yeah.
Right.
And Martha Stewart was in Westport, Connecticut, where she had a studio and residence and all that. And then I started to develop a lot of products for Martha by mail order catalog.
Right.
It was huge business, you know. I think that catalog alone did more business than if I combined all my other catalog together. So it was huge, and you know what I have to say, Brian, it was really it was a very special relationship. She was very demanding, and it taught me a lot, and you know, it's kind of like, you know, making do-overs, making things, you know, samples 5, 6, 7 times until we got it right, and then we launched a lot of products, and a lot of the products I have today are actually because of what I developed for Martha. And then there was also my first TV appearance to be on Martha Stewart Living on the Food Network, and I made a chocolate bûche de Noël. So I took a classic bûche de Noël and I made it into a marzipan, I barely remember, hazelnuts, andouille, ganache, pistachios on it. Fun stuff. I was so nervous, Brian.
You roll with just this elite crowd, man. Like, I'm lucky to know you. Like, I can't believe you were going to spend time with me today, because, like,
I know,
you know.
I know. You're so silly. No, I know. I'm really happy that I got to spend half an hour with you. Thanks, Brian.
Gotta go. Look at the time. I got work to do. It's Christmas is coming. I got Christmas chocolate to make.
And no, but I think, you know, you have to remember that you know, I never had a marketing company helping me with anything. You know, a lot of it has been hard work. You know, sending emails, sending chocolates, and sometimes not. Right, just people tasting something and they're like, this chocolate is out of this world. And I don't have a big ego. It's not what I'm trying to say. But if they were used to something that tasted like crap and now they taste a piece that's made with fresh cream, fresh butter, it's wonderful, then they reach out, right? So that's what happened. And you know, I've been in New York Times 3 or 4 times, you know, last year on the front page, and I've never done advertisement. You know, that is just a budget that's not in there for a small business.
Right. But you're right. I mean, like, I have the pleasure of not having to make chocolate for a living, right? I mean, like, we do recipes and we do trials and we write recipes and that kind of stuff for fun. And, you know, like, we end up with chocolate, right? We end up with a lot of chocolate because whether you make 1 or you make 100 takes the same amount of time, right?
Yep.
And, you know, I'll take something to a party and people are like, wow, this is the best thing ever. And I don't feel that way, right? Because I'm around really great chocolatiers like you and other people. But, like, there's still a large portion of people that have never had a truffle or a praline that's been made within the last 24 hours, right? Yeah. I made this. Like, we went to a trade show where I made peanut butter cups. I made basically a peanut butter cup, but I roasted the peanuts. I ground my own peanuts. I made my own peanut butter filling with milk powder, cocoa butter, sugar, right? I melanged it all, and then I made peanut butter cups. And people are like, can I have this recipe? And I'm like, this has got nothing to do with the recipe. This has to do with the fact that I made this all in the last 24 hours, and you are eating it right now. And by tomorrow, it won't be as good. It just won't be as good. And for when you're talking about that timeline, lots of Americans were used to going into Walgreens, Duane Reedy, right, and buying a box of chocolate off the shelf that had been there for 6 months, right?
Yeah. No, that's very accurate. And you're probably right. We still have a huge population that have still not really tried that. But I think I hope that will slowly change. I mean, it is probably slowly changing.
Yeah. So, because I try to do this because people are asking questions, and they're from Norwalk, so they got to know you. But what's the story with the world's most expensive truffle?
Yes. So many years ago, I got a phone call from Forbes magazine about my prices on chocolate. And I just want to say this first. I had done a chocolate with truffle oil for many years for Giorgio De Luca, Dina De Luca, at a private collection shop. So I do love truffle oil together with chocolate if it's done right. It can be absolutely awful if it's not, but it can be so incredible when it's done right.
White or black?
So, both.
Wow, bold.
So, good question. So, I'm on the phone and they ask me about prices. I'm like, well, Dean DeLuca sells my chocolate for like $70 a pound, but I'm sure there's somebody out there that'll be 75. So while I was on the phone with them, I kind of came up with this. I said, well, can it be a new product? And said, sure. So I said, well, French Perigord truffle wrapped in a chocolate ganache with a little truffle oil, rolled in, dipped in chocolate, rolled in cocoa powder. And you know, then the question was, well, how much is it? And I said, well, $250 a piece, because I kind of know the prices for fresh truffles, you know.
Right.
That sounds very reasonable, actually, and it is very reasonable. And that will, I think that came out to a couple of $1,000s a pound, and that became the world's most expensive chocolate truffle. And we do sell them all. I wish I would say every day, all the time. That's not true, but we do sell them occasionally, and it's fun. It's a special event. New Year's Eve, you know, you can spend money on caviar. You can just as well have that giant little that truffle and cut it with a silver knife in little pieces on a silver plate and drink champagne, right? So it's a special occasion, special event, and we do make them. Every time I get an order, I call my contact in New York. I get fresh truffles delivered here the next day. We make the product and ship them out.
You didn't send me any of those when you sent me chocolate last week.
I know. I did not. I should have. You did help me, by the way, with
That's right.
some important tools for upcoming Food Network show. We just have to wait a year, and I can't say anything about it. So
I know.
We've got to close that conversation.
Right. No, but I
thank
mean,
you.
but in all seriousness, I mean, you've done a lot of that kind of stuff too. Like you said, you don't have a marketing team, but you are always out. I mean, you're always on TV. You're always trying to find new ways to kind of like show what you can do, right? I mean, and whether that day with me went poorly or not, which was a benefit for me, because if your day had gone well, I was not winning that day.
Oh.
But you know, you're putting yourself out there a lot in those environments to try to do something. That's not about ego either.
No, but it's also, remember, you know, I'm a humble guy. It's also about small business survival, kicking. You know, I also done mistakes. You have to remember that. I was 29. I was 24 years old when I started, right? And 29 when I built out a humongous place, Brian. I got into retail. I had 4 stores. I lost money doing retail, you know. I mean, I've done my fair share of mistakes too, and that's a part of learning how to become better, you know. Sometimes less is more, right? But yeah.
So speaking of mistakes, because we ask this question a lot, like, you know, we've only talked about success stories today about flavor. What's the one flavor that you've done that you were sure was going to be great, and like everybody was like, Fritz, what are you thinking? This is the worst piece ever.
So Brian, I have had that question before, and I would love to fake a story and say something, but I can't. I would lie if I did that. I do not believe I have done a creation that tasted awful. For me, food is logic. I've been in it since I was 13 years old. I used to say that anchovies and chocolate is probably not a good combination, but every year I'm fortunate to be invited to an incredible, interesting dinner in the Bronx. A good friend of mine, Justin Fennell, where we are eating foods that everybody used to eat in America before we started to import lamb from New Zealand and so forth. So we are eating raccoons, bobcat, rats, and stuff like that. And I actually made my caramel chocolate with a tiny little totally salted fish on top. And it was absolutely wonderful. But I'm sure I can make something that tastes awful, but yeah.
Mine was durian.
Was curry?
No, durian.
Oh, really? Yeah. Okay. That didn't work?
And truth be told, I couldn't get to it because when it was cooking, as I was making the anglaise to like do it, I had to make it go away because like it smelled like rotting flesh.
Oh, yeah, that does not sound good. Why did you even do that?
Because I wanted to try it. Because it was one of those foods I'd never tried, right? And I think I think you and I see similarly that way, right? Like I see something and I wanna try to see what I can do with it, right? So, you know, obviously we can make those flavors we like better. You know, like that sea salt caramel, we can always do something to make that better,
Yeah.
right? And I think there's obviously room for that too. Like we want to do that, but I mean, like even with my assistant, it's one of those things that we push that I push her on. It's like, all right, let's take that flavor people expect, and where do we go with it? Like it's not enough to do a peanut butter filling. How do we get that honey roasted peanut butter filling that reminds us of that Christmas growing up with whatever it is, right? And I think so. I will try to do flavors that sometimes even if I don't think they make sense logically, I'll try to make them make sense. And sometimes that works and sometimes it doesn't. And durian was just a flavor I didn't like. It wasn't, I don't think it would have been bad. It just wasn't something I cared for. And so it was like, we're done. I can't do this anymore.
Yeah, no, that was fun though. Right. So I guess, I mean, I answered, you know, your question in an awkward way, but I think, as I said, I think flavors are logic in some way. And I think, you know, remember a big part of my culinary world has been savory and cooking as well. So, you know, herbs together with, you know, vegetables is, you know,
so a chocolatier you should check out then.
Yeah.
And a guy that's been on our show a couple times is a guy named Philip Ashley Ricks, and he's in Memphis. And he described kind of that process the same way I think you think, and probably me too in a lot of ways. He's formulating the recipe like it's like playing chess, right? He's like formulating the recipe 3 or 4 different ways before he puts ingredients on the marble. And like so he thinks he has a pretty good idea what it's going to taste like if he does it with this versus this versus this, so that when he gets to the final, it is kind of what he expected it to be, you know, and it's easier at that point, right?
Yeah. So I think, but yeah, but I do, you know, I think, I want to try and explain this. I think there is some kind of discipline from an old school that I came from, right? So I don't always think it's about innovating the next new thing. I think it's about being consistent, because we do have a hardcore loyal following, right? And also some of the e-commerce platforms I'm on, it's the same names that comes up all frequently, right? So it's very important that my Grand Marnier marzipan truffle tastes the same every time, right? For example, and I think you know this from restaurant experiences, right? Consistency is everything. You know, if you had this at a restaurant, you go back a month later and it's not the same, you might go back to that place one more time, and then you will most likely never go back.
Yeah, I get asked that question a lot. How come I don't do my own chocolate company? And the truth be told is that I don't have that kind of discipline, right? I don't have the discipline to say these 10 flavors are the top selling flavors. I can't touch them. I'm not allowed to touch them. That I might be able to touch number 11 and number 12, and I want to tweak stuff all the time. Like you know what I mean? It works, but it could work better. It could work differently. And your customer doesn't want that. Your customer wants that sea salt caramel the same way it was 20 years ago. And what's great about your products are those things are, right? Like they were good 20 years ago. They're good today.
Absolutely. And then you can do seasonal collections. You can do other things. But no, I think in a brand world, I think it's important not to mess around with classics. I mean, we know that we have people that's buying, let's just say the Camel sea salt, right? They're buying that piece, for 15, 20 years now, right? Or a Camel sea salt chocolate bar, for example, right? So, yeah, this is the piece right here.
Look at that. Hey, so while we're talking about that, everything's available online, right?
Yeah. So everything is on our website, and
which is
chocopology.com or Knipschildt untitled.com. It will take you to the same place. I'm sure you can put something up there, Brian. You're so technical.
Hold on, let me see what I can do with this iPad that wasn't working the way I wanted it to work earlier. You keep talking. Let's see what I can do.
So it will take you to the same place, and yeah, and we have a lot of different collections, a lot of different, lot of seasonal products, obviously.
Right. I mean, so COVID's been hard for everybody, but I mean, I guess having an online platform has made it a little easier for you in some ways, right?
Yes, surely. I think, thank you, Brian. Beautiful. I think, I don't want to use the word bread and butter, but I am missing my amenity business tremendously.
Right.
To the hotels, and who knows when all that is picking up again. Um, and obviously, I work with some local theaters and mini bars and things like that, and that's all shut down, right? So
Right.
you know what, we'll get through it. Um, we'll get through it. I have not been able to secure any help or funding through this. So it's been hard, but it's Brian, when things are hard, right, it pushes us to think better and more and be more creative. It really does. And think, you have to think about, I left Denmark, when I was 17, right? I've been on my own since I was 17. I don't lean on somebody, right? Oh, I can get some help here, I can get some help.
Right.
Right? It doesn't work like that for me. I'm not saying I haven't reached out once or twice for some help over 30 years, but I'm just saying it's not in me.
Right. Yeah. Hey, look, Chris Elbow's here. Speaking of early great chocolatiers. So hey, here's that world's most expensive truffle, by the way.
That's right. Yeah. Thank you.
What's interesting is like this project, this Chocolatier chat project came out of COVID, right? And it was one of those like, I got to find some stuff to do. And this project's been great. Like I've had the opportunity to talk to people all over the world, right? About chocolate and philosophy and like how you run a business and all this stuff. And that's archived, right? That's archived for other people that are getting into the business, 20 years from now to take a look at and
Yep.
see the evolution of our industry, right? And yeah, COVID sucks. And like, I don't want to diminish like the pain that it's causing people throughout the world. Like, I mean, like people are dying, right? So
Yep.
this is serious stuff. Like I'm
It-
not diminishing it at all, but like when we can find points in that to get better, right? Like whatever it is, whether that's how we communicate or how we chocolatier or whatever it is, we've got to take advantage of those things. And so, I wouldn't want to do it again.
No, for sure not.
Like I'm hoping this is my last global pandemic, but I hope I'm better on the other side. I hope I know more on the other side. I hope I've met new people on the other side, and I've learned more about our industry on the other side.
Yeah, but I think this is absolutely a wonderful thing, because I do feel that we are very disconnected as chocolatiers. I don't feel there's a unity. Well, Chris Elbow and I, we're different. We've been friends for many years, right? I wish him the best with everything, and I know he wishes me the best with everything. But in generally, I don't really feel there's this true unitement, if that's even a word, right? And
It is now.
I hope we can get there one day. I
Yeah.
mean, think about the restaurant business. I mean,
Yeah.
we used to all hang out together, celebrate each other's happiness, pack restaurants, have happy afterwards, right? And obviously, we can't do that. We're spread out throughout the country, but I do hope there can be a little bit more joy at celebrating each other's companies.
Yeah, I mean, so I get this comment, oh, you got to know everybody, right? And I'm like, I don't. Like, I know a lot of people, but like, I've met people on this program where I'm like, how the hell do I not know? How have I never talked to you before? Like, how does that happen? Like you're doing some cool stuff, like, and I want to know that stuff. And I mean, I think
we need to do more then. I mean, when we get through this pandemic, then we need to come up with something better. There should be no reason that we can't celebrate each other, talk about issues, and maybe we can also all find a better way of, I don't know, buying things, getting some, whatever it might be.
All right. So You said you weren't going to last 30 minutes. We're coming up on 45, and I promised
no,
you'd be done in 45 minutes because you got
Yeah.
work to do.
Yeah, I also need to be involved in shipping today. It's a big day, so.
So
yeah.
I got one last question for you because I asked this question to everybody. Your favorite mass market candy bar? Like your favorite, like pick it up at 7-Eleven.
I think it will be a Kit Kat because of the crunch.
Though, is it a chocolate covered cookie or is it a candy bar?
Well, I guess it's more like I don't know.
I don't know either. That's a question.
You want to put a Kit Kat in, but I enjoy it. And when I go skiing, I think very often I have one in my pocket or a Twix, just because.
Well, caramel and cookies. I'm with you. Like caramels and cookies are good.
Yeah.
All right. So, anything else you want to cover? Because, like, I did promise.
We talked a lot. This is enough. I'm kidding.
Hey, you know what sucks, by the way? I was in Norwalk last summer and I didn't come by.
Why not?
I don't know, because my daughter was playing squash.
Oh, really? Well, it looks like you should play a little squash too.
I do play squash too.
You do, okay.
No, we were staying at the what's that new Holiday Inn chain, like in Norwalk.
Okay. Yeah.
I don't know.
Holiday Inn.
No, it was like it's one of their chain, like the Inspire or something, like I don't know. It was blue. Next time.
Yeah, sure.
We're in Connecticut a lot now that not a lot recently, but now that my daughter plays squash, we're in Connecticut at least once or twice a year. So I promise next time we'll stop by.
I will also come see you. You know, I do want to look at some stuff up there. So we'll see each other in 2021. Let's just be safe and get through 2020.
It's all going to be better. I know it's like, again, I'm not diminishing where we are, and I'm not saying it's not real, but it's going to get better. I'm going to have faith that we're going to get through this.
Good, Brian. It was a pleasure to chat with you.
Cool.
Thanks for always being so helpful and supportive with everything. Truly, I mean it.
It's my pleasure.
So thank you.
All right, go ship some products so you can pay rent this month, okay?
That's right.
All right, Fritz, I'll talk to you later.
See you,
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.